I'm Francis, and this is a story I kept to myself for years, not because I was ashamed of it, but because I needed time to understand what it truly meant. I'm telling it now because maybe someone out there is standing at the edge of their own truth, afraid to step forward. If that's you, maybe this helps. I grew up without a father in any meaningful sense. He walked out when I was too young to remember much, ran off with his secretary, and built another life somewhere else. The court made sure my mother and I weren't abandoned financially. We kept the house, the car, and enough money each month for us to live with dignity. My mother made a decision after he left. She would raise me herself and give that job everything she had. She never remarried, never even seemed interested. It was as if that part of her life closed the day he disappeared, and from then on, everything she had was invested in me. She was a remarkable woman, not just beautiful, though she certainly was, but composed in a way that made people notice. She believed presentation mattered, not out of vanity, but principle. To her, taking care with your appearance was a sign of respect for yourself and for the world. Her nails were always done. Her clothes were chosen with care. Her hair was never neglected. She could leave a room without speaking and still leave an impression. She raised me with that same standard. Clean shirts, polished shoes, proper manners, a tie straightened, posture corrected, hair trimmed before it looked untidy. She was firm, but never cruel. I didn't hate her rules. In truth, I admired her too much to rebel very hard against them. By the time I turned 16, our relationship had become something more companionable than most people would expect between a mother and son. We spent time together easily. Theater, ballet, museum houses, old estates, quiet lunches, train rides into London. I liked her company. She liked mine. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable, elegant in its own small way, and I was content. Then one morning everything shifted. A solicitor's letter arrived at breakfast. My father had been killed in a car accident. With his death, the monthly payments ended immediately. My mother sat at the table holding the letter with a stunned expression I had never seen before. She didn't look heartbroken. She looked ambushed. The pain wasn't emotional. It was practical. Our life had been built on a financial structure that had just vanished. We were supposed to go into London that day. Instead, we sat there and worked out what survival would look like. She said she would get a job. I said I could leave school and help. She shut that down instantly. A week later, she had an interview with an expensive cosmetics company. I still remember how she looked when she left that morning. Elegant brown suit, tan stockings, tasteful scarf, low heels, makeup so beautifully done it seemed effortless. She looked like the kind of woman a luxury beauty brand would dream of putting in a brochure. I told her she'd get the job. She said I was biased. She got it anyway. The role came with training. 8 weeks of it. Modest pay at first, better money later if she passed. We celebrated with dinner and relief. 2 nights later, she sat across from me with an expression I didn't recognize. She was hesitant, which almost never happened. She explained that every trainee had to practice at home on a real person. She didn't have anyone. She couldn't pay a model. Then she looked at me. I understood immediately. My first reaction was disbelief. My second was practicality. It was makeup, training, temporary, and it mattered to her. So I agreed, with one condition. No one else could know. If the secret slipped, we stopped. She threw her arms around me before I'd even finished speaking. That first night, she opened her training case on her dressing table, and I was amazed by the contents. Brushes, powders, palettes, creams, liners, pencils, bottles, compacts, every shade and texture imaginable. It looked less like cosmetics and more like an artist's kit. She sat me down and began. Cold cream, foundation, powder, color, correction, removal, then starting again. She worked carefully, explaining what she was doing as much for herself as for me. She shaped my brows, touched my eyelids with a precision that felt almost surgical, finished with lipstick. Then she turned my chair toward the mirror. I stared. The face in the reflection was mine, but reorganized. The same bones, the same mouth, the same eyes, but interpreted differently. If my hair had been longer and my clothes different, no one would have hesitated. They would have seen a girl. I looked at her and told her she was an artist.
She glowed.
Later, I washed it off. Watched myself reappear in the bathroom mirror. It should have felt ordinary. Instead, it felt strangely significant, though I couldn't have explained why. That was how it began. Soon it became routine. Supper, dishes, then the quiet ceremony of my mother's room and her open cosmetics case. Every night, a different look. Softer tones. Stronger eyes. More dramatic lips. Day looks. Evening looks. Corrections. Experiments. Improvements. Her technique sharpened quickly. What surprised me most was not her progress. It was mine. After each session, I lingered in front of the bathroom mirror before washing everything away. Not for vanity exactly. Curiosity, perhaps. Fascination. There was something about the version of me staring back that held my attention longer each night. By Friday, she created something more theatrical. False lashes, green contacts, stronger color. I went to clean up and didn't. Instead, I adjusted my hair slightly and walked back into the living room still made up. She looked up at once. I told her that if she was going to work on clients eventually, surely it made sense to test how well the makeup lasted over time. She thought about it and agreed. So I stayed that way all evening. I found excuses to pass mirrors. I offered coffee, adjusted lamps, invented reasons to cross hallways where reflective glass could catch me. When bedtime came and she inspected the results, she was delighted by how well everything had held. I washed it off at the sink and felt something I hadn't expected. Disappointment. The next morning, she practiced a daytime look before we went into town. Light, neat, feminine, with a bold red mouth that gave the whole thing confidence. I told her the work looked better every day. She laughed, but she knew I meant it. I removed the makeup before we left, yet while walking through town I felt oddly unsettled. It took me a while to name the sensation. I missed it. That evening I was the one who suggested another practice session. She said she didn't want me to feel pressured. I told her I wanted to help her pass. That was true. It just wasn't the whole truth anymore. On Sunday, I came up with another idea. If her future clients were beginners, then her explanations needed to be simple enough for a novice to follow. So, why not teach me to apply everything myself? If I could do it under her guidance, anyone could. She loved the suggestion. That day became a lesson. Foundation.
Blush.
Shadow. Liner. Mascara.
Brows.
Lipstick. She explained. I attempted.
Failed. Corrected.
Tried again. It took patience I didn't know I possessed, but by the end of the afternoon I had produced something she admitted was surprisingly good. I left it on for a while and, for the first time, allowed myself to think a thought I had been avoiding. I like this. Not as a joke. Not as a favor. Not as a disguise. I simply liked it. The next morning, after she left for training, I practiced alone. It took far longer without her instructions. I made mistakes and started over. But eventually I got there. Good enough that I felt proud of it. I did housework wearing a full face, checking my reflection more often than was probably reasonable. That afternoon, a courier arrived. I signed for a parcel. As he turned away, he thanked me and called me Miss, without the slightest pause. I stood there in the doorway, holding the box with a strange warmth spreading through me. When my mother came home that evening, she looked defeated. Over dinner, she explained why. At the end of training, each trainee had to demonstrate several complete makeup looks in front of examiners and the rest of the group. Each trainee also had to bring their own model. I can't exactly bring my son, she said. I told her she could bring her daughter. She stared at me. I said that for that day, for that purpose, that was what I would be. She had practiced on me from the start. I wasn't going to let her fail now. Then I added something else. If we were going to do this properly, we had to do it properly. Her company sold sophistication. That meant the right clothes, the right image, the right illusion. She agreed. That night's lesson was nails. Shaping, cuticle care, cream, color, top coat. She painted them a vivid red. When I looked at my hands afterward, They seemed transformed, more elegant, more deliberate. When I removed the polish later, I felt that small sense of loss again. The next day, I went further. I researched voice training, pitch, resonance, cadence, breath placement. I practiced for hours, recorded myself, played it back. To my surprise, the voice coming from the machine was convincingly female. Then came posture, movement, how women sat, turned, rested their hands, crossed rooms, shifted weight. I watched videos, took notes, practiced in private. Then I realized I needed clothing. I took my measurements, guessed my size, and went into town. In charity shops, I told people it was for a costume event. They were helpful, cheerful, completely unbothered. I found 2 dresses, bought underwear and tights, and took everything home. I did my makeup first. Then I dressed. The tights startled me most. I hadn't expected to notice the sensations so strongly, the smooth closeness of them, the way they changed how my legs looked and felt. Then came the dress. Then my mother's shoes from her room, black heels that fit well enough to practice in. I looked in the mirror and saw not a boy wearing women's clothes, but a young woman who still needed to learn how to inhabit them. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing exactly that. By the time my mother came home, I was ready for her. I opened the door in a voice she barely recognized and asked what she thought. She went still. She looked at me in a way I had never seen before, as if something familiar had shifted shape in front of her eyes. I explained everything I had done that day. The research, the recordings, the practice. I told her that until her exam, I was fully committed. I wanted corrections whenever something about me seemed masculine. I wanted help with my hair.
I wanted to get this right.
She listened quietly, then began adjusting. That evening she gave me acrylic nails, styled my hair with layers and volume, refined the shape around my face, fixed what needed fixing. When I looked in the mirror afterward, there was very little left of the boy I had been used to seeing. She offered me jewelry, mentioned that pierced ears would make earrings easier. I said I'd get them pierced. Before bed, she gave me a pale blue baby doll nightdress and matching underwear, smiling as if it were a playful gift, though I think she understood it was more than that. I changed into it, moved across the room, and something about the softness, the lightness, the way it settled on me, felt unexpectedly natural.
From then on, my mornings changed. Bath, shaving,
Lotion, underwear,
tights, dress, shoes,
makeup,
hair, perfume.
mirror. At first the mirror asked a question. Soon it didn't. I stopped asking whether I looked believable and started asking whether I looked good. One morning the phone rang while I was doing housework. A man from the garden center needed to confirm an order my mother had placed. We spoke for a minute or two. I gave him the information. He thanked me. Then he wished me a good morning and called me miss in exactly the casual way men do when they aren't thinking about it at all. That mattered more than the courier. Because this time I had not been concentrating. I had simply spoken. I began going out dressed. First small trips, then longer ones. Bus rides,
Shops,
a piercing studio, clothing stores, walks through town with a handbag over my shoulder and lipstick in my bag. No one questioned me. People saw what they saw. The day of my mother's presentation arrived. I dressed carefully. She styled my hair while I chose jewelry. Even without makeup, the reflection was unambiguous. I joked that it would be the last day she'd have a daughter. She answered softly that she knew, and that she wanted that daughter to know how grateful she was. At the presentation, she introduced me as her daughter without hesitation. Then she gave the best demonstration of her life. Calm, clear, intelligent, precise. When the panel finished deliberating, she came back radiant. They praised not just the quality of her work, but the clarity of her teaching. Then came the surprise. They wanted to know whether her daughter would consider a 3-month modeling contract. They needed someone for demonstrations and promotions. They said I had natural presence. My mother assumed I would refuse. I didn't. I told her my studies could work around it. The truth was simpler than that. I didn't want to stop. So I stayed Fran a little longer. That contract became a bridge to an entirely different life. At breakfast the next day, I told my mother we should stop hiding from people we knew. Better they hear the truth from us plainly than through rumor. She agreed.
Calls were made.
News spread. To my relief, the world did not end. The work expanded. Department stores, private events, hotel demonstrations, trade shows, cosmetics counters. My mother thrived. She was excellent at teaching, excellent with people, and highly regarded. She always introduced me as her daughter. Eventually, I stopped translating it in my head. In that world, in that context, it was simply true. My wardrobe grew. Dresses, skirts, shoes, jewelry, nightwear, bags. My old clothes moved quietly into attic storage, not in ceremony, just because I no longer needed them. My hair got longer. My mother's stylist took personal pride in it.
Men noticed me.
Women noticed me. I got used to both. Near the end of the second month, after an evening event at an upscale department store, a manager handed me a business card. A woman had left it for me but hadn't been able to stay. The card read Samantha Williams.
I had no idea who that was.
The cosmetics manager was astonished. She explained that Samantha Williams ran one of the most powerful modeling agencies in the world. I showed the card to my mother. She told me I would be foolish not to at least meet her, unless I truly wanted to step away and return to the life I had before. But by then, I knew something I had been circling for weeks. I didn't want to go back. So I called. For the meeting I dressed carefully, but not loudly. Navy dress, white tights, simple jewelry, measured makeup. My mother fussed over me until I laughed and told her she would make me nervous. The agency office in Mayfair was exactly what you'd expect. Polished, expensive, controlled. When Samantha Williams finally came in, I understood immediately why people took her seriously. She carried authority the way other women carried handbags. She asked if I wanted a modeling career. I told her the truth. Almost all of it. I explained how this had begun, why it had begun, and how it had stopped feeling temporary long before I admitted that to myself. She listened without interruption. Then she asked a simple question. Did I enjoy living this way? I said yes, without hesitation. That answer changed everything. She offered me a 1-year exclusive contract. Mostly female presentation, though occasional menswear if suitable. A month of professional training first. Catwalk, portfolio, showroom work. Serious money. Real opportunity. I needed my mother to co-sign because of my age.
She did.
Training started the week her own cosmetics contract ended. The people there treated me as a professional from the first moment. No fascination. No discomfort. No raised eyebrows. That alone taught me something about the industry. When people are good enough at what they do, they often have no time for narrow thinking. My portfolio shoot erased whatever doubt I still had. The photographs didn't look like imitation. They looked right, intentional, natural in a way that was impossible to dismiss. Then came the work. Showroom modeling first. Then Fashion Week. Then more. London.
Paris.
Milan. New York.
Japan.
South America. Mostly women's fashion, which I preferred. I loved the detail, the transformation, the unapologetic drama of it. On the catwalk I discovered something I should probably have known much earlier. I enjoyed being seen. Not carelessly, not stupidly, but completely. That realization explained a great deal. There were amusing moments too. Airport staff comparing passports to appearances. Customs officers trying not to look confused. Questions asked politely, answers given calmly. 2 contracts became regular fixtures in my life. One with a hosiery brand, which introduced me properly to stockings and suspenders and changed my opinion forever about what was comfortable. The other with a beauty company that paid me to model hands and wear new nail colors. Of all the strange turns my life could have taken, that one felt absurdly luxurious. By 19, I was living in North London, earning more than I had ever imagined, driving a ridiculous yellow Porsche, and sending my mother money every month despite her repeated protests. She loved her work too much to retire. My daily life had become a ritual of its own. A long bath,
Smooth skin.
lotion, standing before a wardrobe organized with professional precision, choosing the day, Sometimes conservative. Sometimes not. Sometimes a skirt so short it practically invited commentary. Sometimes heels that made a statement before I said a word. I enjoyed all of it. One day at a supermarket, I met a woman in the checkout line. Dark hair. Effortless beauty. The kind of face that seemed to require nothing added to it. We started talking while we waited, and the conversation felt instantly easy. I drove home annoyed with myself for not getting her name. The following weekend I saw her again. This time I asked her for coffee. Her name was Erin. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became a long evening of conversation in my flat. At one point I asked if there was anyone in her life. She said she wasn't interested in men and hoped that didn't change anything. It didn't. Then she told me she had looked me up. She knew the truth. And it didn't push her away. If anything, it drew her closer. She crossed the room, held my face gently, and kissed me. That night changed me as surely as the first mirror had. What followed between us was not chaos, not scandal, not confusion. It was tenderness,
Ease.
honesty. I had never experienced intimacy that felt so calm and so complete at once. We started seeing each other regularly. One evening, as she was leaving, I asked if she would ever wear a skirt. I had only seen her in trousers. She smiled and said she had assumed an androgynous woman was what someone like me would prefer. I asked what she meant by someone like me. She kissed my cheek and said she had begun to think she might enjoy being a truly glamorous lesbian. Then she left me standing in the doorway, smiling like a fool. That is the shape of the story. What began as a practical favor for my mother became the truth of my own life. At first I wore makeup so she could keep a job. Then I wore it because I liked who I saw. Then I stepped into a life I had never planned and found, to my astonishment, that it fit me better than the one I'd been given. If there is any point to telling all this, it is not that everyone should live as I did. It is only this. Sometimes the person you become does not arrive with thunder. Sometimes they appear quietly, in the mirror, a little at a time, until one day you realize you are no longer pretending. You are simply there. And once you know that, really know it, there is a certain kind of courage in refusing to disappear again. If you want, I can also turn this into